Okay, hey guys, I have a little tip here. This is just the old condensing unit top with the replacement fan motor already installed. It's an A.O. Smith. I don't know how old it is, but a few years old. The replacement motor anyway. This is just a piece of scrap, scrap, but I thought I'd shoot this video. It has a plug here, showing up in video. It has a plug for the reversible rotation on the fan motor. Most of them just have the typical spade connections, the male and female. They just plug into one another, and you would just reverse those to change the motor rotation. So this one is a little different because it has a thicker, big plug. So on this one, I found that reversible plug just dangling in there, and it's not really gonna get caught on the fan blade because it's the fan blade is low enough where it wouldn't get chopped off, but it can get close. It's kind of questionable. That's just the way I found it. Now, the best way to replace a condenser fan motor is to get the OEM motor. A lot of times that's not really feasible because OEM replacement is expensive and maybe it's not in stock, and a lot of the times it's not really worth the cost, this being that the unit's old. So a lot of times you're just going to use a generic replacement motor, A.O. Smith's, Century, whatever brand you use. The problem is now you have more wires. You have these reversing leads that you don't know what to do with. So a lot of guys would just fish them through the top grate and plug them in so they wouldn't get chopped off by the fan blade. They didn't do this in this case because this reversible plug here, this plug is too big and thick to fit through this grate, so they just left it there on this motor. But most of the motors come with the plug-in spade connections that you would just plug into one another and reverse them to change the motor rotation if you needed to. Who's the originator on this idea? I don't take any credit for it whatsoever. I'm just adding my 2 cents to it. Cut a little piece of pipe, PVC pipe, flexible conduit, whatever you want to use. Make a few inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, whatever, and stuff those reversing wires in the pipe, and then zip tie the pipe to the top of the grate here. Now, I remember watching a video, routed the reversing wires up top. You plug them in so they're secure, so they don't get chopped off by the fan motor. And you take some heat for doing that because it looks ugly, for one, and two, it could be dangerous because you got these live wires up here that a kid could come up and play with, or the sun will damage those wires eventually. A lot of guys do it that way, and it's not really our fault as techs because on these replacement fan motors, they don't give you instructions on the best way to do it, as far as the best way to wire it, what to do with those reversing wires. So someone on YouTube came up with the idea, getting some pipe, flexible conduit, or a 3/4 inch PVC Schedule 40 pipe, typical for most air conditioning for condensate lines. So they would take 3 inches or so, reversing wires through there, and then put the zip ties through and secure it that way. But the problem with that is that these zip ties in the sun are going to fail, and they will fail eventually. They're plastic and they're not going to last forever. So when these fail, it's those wires and that pipe is going to fall in the fan blade eventually. Maybe not for a long time. It all depends if the unit's in the sun, whatnot, how the quality of your zip ties. I'm going to add my 2 cents to this idea. That's still a good idea to put those reversing wires in the pipe. Since this has a big plug, it's not going to fit in this pipe. So, but most times you would just have those spade connectors and you stuff the reversing wires through this pipe. And picture this as 3 inches. I just have this pipe laying around. So my idea is at Harbor Freight one day. Now, say what you will about Harbor Freight, but these are 12-inch stainless steel cable ties. And they do appear to be very good quality. They're stainless steel. They're not going to rust, and they're not going to get sun damage like plastic would. For something like this, if you're trying to secure conduit pipe for your new replacement motor. Now what I'm going to show you is to use these. So let's say you have reversing leads for the fan motor that would fit into the pipe, the conduit, whatever conduit you're using. You would just go ahead, stick the wires through there inside the pipe, go ahead, get your stainless steel zip tie, and route it up the best way you can. Sometimes it's not exactly easy. So just put through the wires inside there, the typical wires that would fit in there, the spade connection wires. Now go ahead and start this zip tie, and once you start this zip tie through this connection, you're not going to get it. I tried to disconnect it, but it's not going to happen. So once you stick that zip tie through there, it's done. If you mess up, you gotta cut it, start with a new one. So go ahead and zip it down. So now this little connection is below, so it's not sticking where it would cut someone. Go ahead and add another one to secure it. Use how many you think you need. There you go. Turn it around and make sure you do it the right way. It's kind of dark out here already. So go ahead, start it, stick it in the connection. There you go. It slides in pretty easy. Just route this connector below so it's not sticking up to cut someone. Make it tight. Then cut the excess off with a pair of cutters as flush as you can so it's not sharp and cutting anyone. There you go. Now you have a solution that's going to last a long time, and it looks decent. It looked better with the gray conduit pipe, but doing it with the white PVC pipe is not a bad way either. Then if you need to secure your main power wires for the motor, for the capacitor, the power, if you want to use the original conduit, or if it's damaged, you could go ahead and use your replacement conduit and do it the same way for what you did for the reversing wires for the main power wires as well. So that's just my little tip. So these are going to definitely last longer than plastic zip ties.